Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this second in the series of joint webcasts from SAP, SmartOrg, and PlatinumDB, taking PPM to the next level. And in today's session, we'll be looking at optimizing project and portfolio value. Just before we get into the content proper, just want to handle a couple of logistics. In terms of questions, if you look at your screen, you should have a chat box, so feel free to enter questions throughout the webcast into that box, and we'll take those questions at the end. Another thing, just for courtesy, if you could put your phones on mute during the webcast. And just a reminder that we are recording this webcast, and we'll be sending out the link shortly after with the full replay. So having covered those logistics, let me just make a couple of introductions. My name is Ian Strain. I'm a Senior Director with SAP in the PLM application area. And joining me today is Don Creswell, co-founder of SmartOrg, and also President of PlatinumDB, Tony DeRosa. I'll be just kicking off with some these introductions, a very brief overview, and then passing over the session to Don and Tony to take you through the rest of the content. So we're going to be looking at PPM optimization, advanced PPM. We'll drop into a demonstration, take you through a walkthrough through scenarios, and then we'll be doing some Q&A. So let me just kick off and set the scene here. Really at the bottom of the architecture that's depicted on this slide, and this is really the foundation, if you like, for enterprise projects and portfolio management. At the bottom of this architecture, the foundation layer and operational layer is core ERP, so your SAP Business Suite that holds all of the master data and the master transactions that drive a lot of your business processes. As we move up the architecture to the project management and execution layer, or you could be determined to be the tactical layer. So it's the implementation layer of the strategies that you've been put in place at this highest level in the architecture, which is the portfolio management, portfolio analytics layer, the strategic layer, where you decide through stage gates, fail gates, whichever kind of methodologies that you use, which ideas, which initiatives will actually eventually make their way into executable projects. Now, the key concept here is that we're trying to reduce the amount of double data entry or reinventing the wheel that typically goes on in less mature project and portfolio management scenarios. So the intent here is you collect all of that business level data, the business cases, you set up your KPIs, metrics, decision points at the portfolio management layer, and then you initiate using that data that you've already created and collected, including structure for project templates, and you initiate those projects straight out that portfolio layer. And as you're going through the execution of projects, you're going to be integrating and pulling data in from master data from the ERP system. It could be from other external systems as well. And as you're going through the life cycle of in-flight projects, you're going to be wanting to aggregate that data back up to the portfolio layer, so you don't just get an idea of the health of that individual in-flight project. You do that in the context of all of the other projects that make up your portfolio, and they could be to-be projects, they could be in-flight projects, or historical projects. And really, this is giving context to multiple different project types. For example, you may have very well planned projects, and certainly in the IT scenario, a lot of unplanned projects. Even in product development, you see that as well. So really, this has kind of set the scene for moving up the maturity level, and the assumption we're at is that people that have reached this level of integrated process are probably at maturity level 3 to 4. And what Don and Tony are going to be talking about as we move forward is some advanced principles and practices for project portfolio management at the enterprise level. So at this point, I'd like to hand over to Don, and he will take you through some of those advanced PPM practices.
Thank you very much, Ian. What we're going to be talking about today is what we call advanced PPM. Advanced PPM supports the economic risk and uncertainty analysis and evaluation of strategic business opportunities. With that, we mean new products, we mean R&D, and other opportunities and projects will have a major impact and a significant impact on revenue, profit, and growth. And this cuts across the entire development cycle, starting with just after ideation. You have now collected a lot of ideas, but now you're boiling them down to some very important ideas, and you can't do them all. So what you really want to do is say, how do we focus on those and select those projects which are really going to produce the highest value for our company, given that we have limited resources? Also, these kind of projects tend to have long time frames prior to launching them commercially, and there is a great deal of uncertainty involved. You know, what is the size of the market? Can we really pull this off in the time frame? Do we know enough about the acceptance in the marketplace and channels and such? These can be very uncertain, particularly with a new product. And also, when you need to develop defensible business plans, I think we have all been through this. We're trying to convince upper management that, hey, well, look, we need $10 million, we need $20 million, whatever we need to get this done. How do we provide a defensible business plan that gives us a much higher probability of achieving the go signal for managers? And then throughout the cycle, we want to monitor and track changes, because particularly if you have a long development cycle, things can happen that are going to modify that business plan significantly. In other words, you might find that halfway through a competitor makes a major change that is going to totally disrupt your development cycle. Therefore, you want it to track using advanced PPM methods so that you can adjust as needed. Now, why do you want to do this? Now, let's look at new product development. Failure is normal. Innovation, particularly, 45, 55, 75% of products are going to fail. And by fail, I mean they're not going to meet the revenue objectives. They're not going to meet the market penetration objectives. And occasionally they fail altogether. Even Google reported some years ago that out of 251 projects or add-ons since 1999, 90 have been canceled. And of 22 major product launches, 8 have been huge flops. Another study by the Industrial Research Institute says, look, starting out with ideation, it's going to take at least 3,000 or so on the average raw ideas to even come down to 100 exploratory projects, well-developed 10. You're going to launch 2, and by the way, 1 is really going to make it in the marketplace. This is scary, of course, but it's normal. And so the idea behind advanced PPM is to increase your success rate. Now, advanced PPM addresses some of these reasons for failure, and I'm sure that many of you online today have faced these kind of issues. There's just too many projects and too few resources. You can't do them all, so which one should you do? And if you have too many in your portfolio, which one should be given additional resources based on accreting value, and which ones should not? And you have too many zombies. That means these are projects that hang around years and years and years, and for some reason somebody just cannot kill them. Advanced PPM gives you the information you need to make the case for killing. And the biggest reason for failure is the failure to take uncertainty into account. I mentioned that previously. For instance, if you start out with a whole new marketplace where there's a lot of argument, if you will, a lot of assumptions across your team about the size of that market simply because it is new. And you can have very wide variations in your forecast, meaning that if you hit the low point, you may actually lose money. On the other hand, there may be reasons that will take you to the higher value. But you must recognize that there are uncertainties around this value. An inconsistent product and project evaluation, think about it, that if you're going to have a portfolio is very simply nothing more than comparing projects against each other on a level playing field. So this means that your project evaluation, this level needs to be consistent. And of course, we all recognize that there are silos and different thinking among finance, marketing, R&D, and other functions. So one of the ideas behind the process that drives advanced PPM is to bring all of these people into a level playing field. Now, PPM is not new. There are clients like these who are using various aspects of the process, some with very large databases and portfolios, others using it to drive their strategies. As you can see, these are Fortune 100, Fortune 500 companies, as well as a few small companies. So this can apply across the board depending upon the level of your investment in R&D or investment in new product development. What is the benefit of PPM? Well, we did a survey several years ago with the clients who are using advanced PPM process, and these are quotes from actual clients. One major company, and they are big, they're in the Fortune 100, so $3 billion may not seem that much, but they created $3 billion in added value using the PPM, advanced PPM. One company doubled the number of projects killed in 1 year, freeing resources for more valuable projects. And another increased value return from the portfolio doubled it from $40 to $80 million simply by understanding all the drivers of values and the risk and uncertainties. On the improving productivity side, one company says, look, we now use the outputs from advanced PPM software displays rather than PowerPoints, rather than Excel spreadsheets, and we have saved 8 man-years every year just in avoiding wrangling those spreadsheets and producing PowerPoints. So as you can see, advanced PM does provide benefits on both sides of the equation, growing your business as well as saving money and increasing productivity. Now, what we call the PPM optimization workbench is an integrated solution with SAP PPM 5.0, bringing all of the advantages in the analytics and such of advanced PPM to the SAP suite of PPM and PLM solutions. Basically, we're looking to drive high-value opportunities, select them, and make them happen. So you want to define, refine, and analyze the business case. And you want to identify what are these key value drivers. Typically, you will find there are only a dozen at the very most, sometimes 3 or 4 drivers of value that are critical to the entire success of your project or process. And again, and I'll emphasize, and I'll continue to emphasize, the importance of evaluating the impact of risk and uncertainty on your decisions. In the portfolio, what you really want to do is balance risky projects versus other projects so that you optimize the economic value of that portfolio. Answering the question, how much risk do we want to take? How much risk can we take to drive toward a higher value? And then we want to, when we allocate resources, we want to allocate them based on producing the highest value possible. Tony, you might just take a few seconds here to describe how the optimization workbench brings everything together with SAP. Hi, Tony. Are you there? We may have had an earthquake in Chicago, everybody. Well, basically what this does, as you can see at the bottom of the screen, we have a browser, this is an online browser that can be entered anywhere that people have access to the internet, to the PPM workbench itself, which contains a decision analytic engine driven by templates which are developed for each of our clients. We also then take that into the PPM5 system, and it's a completely integrated system through a cockpit or through a dashboard where you can originate projects in PPM 5.0, select those projects that need intensive evaluation, and these, by the way, are usually about 20% of the projects you're going to do. These are the important ones. You're going to do the analysis, return back to PPM 5, and use business objects and other things to produce any kind of display that you'd like to have. And since you have all the data, the number of displays that can be configured are virtually innumerable. And as I said, there's a single access point from PPM 5.0 in a configured dashboard that can say, look, let's look at the business portfolio itself. Let's look at the economic evaluation. Then let's look over to the execution side and see how well we're doing. This can be done at each stage gate or at any time that you feel that you have to take a look at the performance against what you said you were going to do. And then, of course, you can make the adjustments as necessary to stay on that value track. That's the important thing, because everything we're trying to do in innovation and product development is to make sure that we're creating ultimate value for the company. And the system integrates, sometimes I refer to this as the business portfolio, and some people say this is strategic. You can argue about the word strategy, but the business portfolio is basically the decisions that you have to make about which projects are we going to really invest in based on making money out of them, right? And we want to really identify potential winners because we want to feed them. By feeding them, I mean give them the appropriate attention, the right resources, the right amount of capital. And the whole idea is to optimize the economic value that you get from doing that project. On the other hand, even knowing all of this, if you don't do it right, some people say the side I just talked about is doing the right project. On the right side here, it's doing the project right. And this means that you've got to accomplish all the tactics and all the stuff that needs to be done to make it happen. So bringing all of these together will give you probably the most powerful system that's available from any source today. And so the combination of PPM 5 with the dashboard into the optimization workbench can carry you through from ideation all the way through launch and keep your decisions around creating value at every one of these points. And what I'm going to do is just take you into a little demonstration here of how the workbench has solved a fairly simple problem, but the concepts are all here. And what we have come up with, I said, let's just have some fun with this thing, okay? So we came up with this jolly little idea called the solar kettle. And this solar kettle is something that the innovation team has come up with. And they said, look, we got this thing that boils in seconds, okay? And wherever you are, wherever you get some sun, it uses no electric power, it uses no gas, and we're going to make a really elegant design out of it. And by the way, today, the green movement is still a strong movement. We think we have a really strong appeal to that market niche. So we're going to go to the boss and we're going to say, hey, we're going to try to get some money for this. So we're going to originate the project over starting in the PPM 5. Tony, are you there? Okay, I guess we have lost Tony. But this shows that the work process behind this, and the process starts from number one here, proposing a new project, selecting it in the workbench and using the optimization software, doing a preliminary evaluation, and saying, look, does this thing make sense from the very beginning, or should we just decide to stop right now and go on to something else? So the team will take a first cut at the project values you'll see on the upcoming slides. Say, look, let's put some preliminary numbers, the very best thing we can get into this system, and just see what it looks like. What are the key variables we really have to work on? What are the things that can make this project or break this project? And we really want to find out about those. And then how do we track this on through to the time that we want to make the product, launch the product? So first of all, in the PPM system, we're going to say, let's look at the projects that have been proposed, particularly the ideation. And here you have used the traditional approach to selecting projects, like scorecards and various kinds of questionnaires and numeric systems that say, look, let's do a quick cut on this, a course evaluation, and whittle these things down to something that makes sense. Such things as, what's the strategic fit here? Does this thing really build on the markets that we already know, or does it not? Do we have the technology to do this and such? Once you have selected the project at that level, you now say, well, okay, this is such an important project that's going to have such an impact on the future of our company in terms of both revenue growth but profitability. We really have to dig deeper and do some really in-depth economic analysis and look at the risks and uncertainty involved. Now, the team has put together what we call a strategy table. And I will not go into this in great detail except to say that it's a very useful tool at this level. At the vertical axis here, you may have a list of, I only have two here, of possible scenarios or possible strategy alternatives that this can be followed for this product. Sometimes these will have 3 and 4 and 5 or a dozen different alternatives. Across in the columns, you will see there are various decisions that have to be made should we follow this particular strategy. For instance, if we follow the first strategy here, our channel is going to be high-end tea shops for our little tea kettle. On the other hand, if we follow the other strategy, our channel will be things like the whole earth catalog, things like trying to sell this thing through the internet and such. And what are the features that we have to really emphasize for this strategy versus the other strategy? A strategy table like this enables people to discuss various approaches, come up with different ideas, and ultimately, in many cases, combine a couple of these strategies, what we call a hybrid strategy, which makes the best sense to move forward. Now, the tea kettle, people have done this, and they say, okay, well, how are we going to evaluate it? Well, the advanced PPM system contains a set of configured templates for each of these major decision areas. And this is a very typical template, which, by the way, these are configured specifically for each client. But they're quite generic at the basic. Can we do it? These are the technical issues, the development issues. Can we really pull this off? Because if you can't pull it off, well, you're not going to make any money out of it. So what are the issues involved here? What are the probabilities that we can really do this? If we can do it, how much is this worth? How big is the market? How fast is the market growing? What kind of Is everybody's phone muted? I hear some noise on the line. How long is it going to take to penetrate this market? What kind of margins can we get? And things, all of that contributes to cash flow. And of course, what kind of costs are involved here? Do we have launch costs that are very high, large advertising costs, channels, whatever? And in some cases, who knows, we may have a new manufacturing line or something. So this template allows all of these factors to be entered into the computer to do the economic analysis. Now, if you will think about this, if you try to do this on an Excel spreadsheet and have an analyst or two running around doing Excel spreadsheets, first of all, it's going to take a lot of work. Second of all, you have to say, does that analyst really know our business? Is it really going deep enough? By the way, do we really know what is in that model? So the idea of this graphic here is to show management or show anyone who you're trying to have make a decision, this is what is in this business model. Very clear. And here's a typical example of some of the input screens on the computer that take each one of the variables or factors in this model and display them as input screens. And I have shown just a few here for the on the market side. And let's just take one. Here we're talking about how long is it going to take us to get up to peak share. How long does it take us to ramp up here? Okay, some people think it's going to be as low as 1.5 years. Others think it's going to be 2.5 years. Well, if it's 1.5, that's one thing, but 2.5, that can make a huge amount of difference on your ultimate value. And these inputs, by the way, are not just guesses. These are functional, cross-functional team inputs we usually like to have as part of the process. Finance people involved, marketing people involved, R&D people, whatever people are critical stakeholders to the decision. The point is you want to figure out what we know and what we don't know. And I've enlarged one of these here to show a typical example that we find in the marketplace that people generally have large arguments over the size of a market when there's a really new innovation, a new product. And in this case, you can see that perhaps the innovation team, well, for a couple of reasons. One, they're excited about the product. Two, well, they want to sell this product to senior management, right? So they're very optimistic. This product here could be, at least a $200 million market potential out there. Well, you know, in this company, you have a CFO who's been around this thing for about 10, 15 years. He's seen new products come and go, and he says, come on, you guys. If this thing ever, you know, that market is 85 million, I'll eat it. Now, the point here is the CFO is not right. The CFO is not necessarily wrong. The ideation team is not right or wrong. These are serious differences of opinion and possible scenarios. So what you want to do here is in each of these variables, capture what could happen, and if it does happen, what will be the impact on your business. And so the team has done this, and they have entered the data for each, and you know, with as I said, with good reasons, or not just throwing numbers at a dartboard. And the computer will now spit out a dozen or so displays. These are two of the more useful displays at the beginning. As you can see, there is a cash flow display that says, look, here's what the cash flow would look like given the scenario that you guys have proposed. And based on that scenario, the expected project value is around 15 million. Not earth-shattering, is it? But based on what you told me, it could be as high as 141 million if we hit the high end of our uncertainty ranges. On the other hand, it could be as low as 17 million. This obviously is great cause for concern because there's a great deal of uncertainty impact on this particular project. You want to know this, of course. Many of you may have seen what's called a tornado diagram. Basically, what this diagram does after the analysis takes every possible combination that you have put in and does a full analysis against each variable's impact on the net present value of your commercial value based on those ranges of uncertainty. Now you will find, generally speaking, that only 3, sometimes 4, of the factors in this analysis are really important. And these are things that can either make a big success out of your product or project or cause failure. Let's just take a quick look here. You remember we looked at market size and said it could be as low as 85 million. If it were as low as 85 million, the commercial value of this project would be something a little over 12, 13 million. Wow. But if the market size were as big as 200 million, guess what? Our commercial contribution here to the thing could be somewhat around 46 million or so. Aha. What this chart tells you is where you want to place your efforts to do as much as you can to avoid the downside and drive toward the upside in each one of these areas. Now, can you do anything about market size? Sometimes you can, and that may be a given. If that's a given and you cannot do anything about it, well, you're going to face the fact that you've got a great deal of uncertainty here. On the other hand, maybe you can change the product requirement, change the product itself, and enlarge the potential market available to you as a result of doing that. So the reason for using this kind of chart is to say, where do we put our resources to drive toward high value and avoid the risky low value? And I have just taken the 3 bars here that are important to this team on the tea kettle. And again, you've seen the market bars at the top. And so the marketing people and the R&D people on this team would say to the boss or to their CFO, look, you can see this potential here, but we feel that we need additional resources to see if we can drive toward that high side. So we need some R&D resources and we need some market research and things like that to enable us to better understand where we are. The boss says, well, Tony, are you there yet?
I am, sir.
Okay. Tony, have you been able to look over at resources? You know, our team says, man, they want to do a lot more R&D and they want to do some marketing stuff. Do we have these resources?
Absolutely, Don. So as we've been doing our economic analysis and looking at the availability of resources, what we've done is looked at our business objects reporting tools and used those to look at the actual allocation of resources based on different roles to the different teapot models that we've got in place. And what we've been able to identify is, you know, what the actual demand versus versus the supply. And what we're going to have to do is do a little what-if analysis using the new demand based on the new solar teapot. So if you look at the next slide, we'll be able to reallocate the resources, doing a little what-if. In this case, we've been able to use the economic analysis results. So, for example, the CFO chart outputs as an input for reallocating the resources and being able to focus our energies on the teapot and de-emphasizing some of the resource activity on the other models.
Oh, that's very good. That's awfully useful information to have. So we're really looking back and forth between these particular applications. One, is it worth doing at all? But can we get the resources to do it? And so let's move ahead in time a little bit, maybe a next quarter, next gate review, 6 months from now. And the team was able to get the resources to invest in additional R&D and such. And they have now updated the data in those original models that we talked about. And by the way, this is a very important issue, that you want to update that data at critical stage gate reviews or phase gate reviews to see where things have changed. And as a result of learning, which is very important, learning as a result of doing these investigations and this analysis is part of the process. We have now learned more about the market. We have learned more about the technical features and such. And now, after we have reviewed and updated the data, we find that the bars in the tornado chart have significantly narrowed. And what this means is that through additional knowledge and such, we have reduced the uncertainties around these very key variables. And the value here has increased from a little over the 40 that we had before, 45 or so, up to just under 200 million. This is a very significant improvement as a result of the investments that we have made in additional resources. And comparing the change in value here, you can see this. By the way, expected project value that we show at the top is project value totally weighted for the impact of uncertainty on both the can we do it technical side as well as the commercial side. And given that we can pull this off now, here is the range of values, commercial value, given that success. So as you can see, we still have a potentially high of 286 million should we be able to really pull it off, and a low of 117 million, which is significantly better than we had previously. This is one of the charts that people use quite frequently because it displays the entire range of outputs. We also can take any of these outputs, data from these analyses, and display them using business objects and such in any form that management finds the most valuable to them. So as I said, you can take this data, export it, and do any kind of display which is useful to your company. Now, the other thing we want to look at, while this project looks reasonably good on its own now, how does it really fit into our overall portfolio? And I will just show you a couple displays. There are about a dozen different displays. I'll show you two of the most used. One, of course, on the left and right side here are the, what is this commercial value given the fact that we can't pull it off? In the initial review, before the team went to the R&D, additional R&D and marketing resources and such, the solar kettle, well, you know, it wasn't bad at all, but in terms of the overall portfolio, it was kind of down toward the lower third in terms of its value. However, after we have learned how to perform on the requirements a little bit better, we've learned more about the marketplace and how to get there. The solar kettle within the portfolio has now risen to second place. The idea here with these kind of displays is to balance out the whole portfolio, or to look during a meeting, if you have a portfolio meeting, as where each of your projects or products within that portfolio lie, and how do they relate to each other. The various color codes here are configurable color codes to pay, in this case, depending upon what phase the particular project is in at the time we made this analysis. There's also another chart that people use consistently, and this is what we call an innovation chart. On the vertical axis, this is that probability that we can do it, the probability of technical or development success. And if we can do it, how much is it worth? What commercial value can we get out of it? This will plot all the projects that are in the portfolio based on those factors. Now, you will see in the orange lines here, this tracks one analysis versus the other analysis. Now, this can be time. This can be what-if scenarios. This can be 2 or 3 different alternatives depending upon the type of evaluation you're doing. But what you really want to do is track the movement over time of these particular projects. We can see the teapot, as we've been talking about, as you recall, went from 25% or so of technical success and was worth about a little over 50 or 60. On the other hand, now it is moved up to the upper right-hand quadrant, which is, by the way, where you want your really successful projects to be. But if you look over here at this project down here, CP04 it's called, it has declined in technical success, and it's still not worth a lot of money. And these are the kind of projects that you want to say, okay, if we can't really do anything with this project to make it a much better project, let's kill it and free resources to put against projects that can make us a lot of money. So the boss says, hey guys, you've done a really good job, and I really understand where you're going. Let's go ahead and move forward. And he probably was going to say, and by the way, I keep tracking the value on this thing because I want to make sure it's a success. And what we have illustrated here is the 2 dimensions of decision making supported by advanced PPM. One is from the senior management level down, where we're looking at business cases, we're looking at presentations to us. For senior management, we really need to be convinced, and we have to have a defensible forecast that we can rely on so we can make good decisions about providing the funding and resources needed. On the other hand, if you look at it from the team standpoint, who are proposing a project, then they want to be able to put together the very best business plan they can and illustrate to senior management that they have really thought through all of the uncertainties we talked about before and the high side and low sides. So it works, this works both ways when you have this kind of analysis. Tony, boss comes to you a year or so later and says, hey, did this thing really work out?
Absolutely, Don. So as you had indicated during the presentation, the PPM workbench provides our executive, managerial, and analysts with a multitude of tools to execute various reporting views. This is one of the reporting views for the solar teapot, where we were able to do a strategic revenue plan and look at what the strategic revenue plan was while we were doing our analysis, our what-if analysis, and also the profit by year. A lot of our customers, a lot of our SAP customers are also interested as they start to ship product, take orders, look at the actual results of the solar teapot. So what you see here is that a year later, as the orders start coming in, we could get to the actual SAP transactional data, so we could see the sales orders, the revenue by order, the cost of sale, the profit, and other associated costs to get to a cash flow by item. So this is an example of something that we're able to bring with the capabilities of integrating the overall solution with the enterprise controlling and other profitability engines that are available in the SAP suite.
So really, as shown as should we be disciplined sufficiently in our organization, is that we have a closed-loop system here. We have started with ideation. We've gone through project selection. We've gone through development. We have launched the project, and now we loop back and say, okay, how well did we do against all of our projections, which provides learning for the future business planning. So some of the key benefits that we have seen from advanced PPM is the optimization of project selection. Let's take some of the politics out of it. Let's get it down to a level playing field and see where we can develop really good business cases that are defensible, identify these key value drivers which tell us where to put our risks, where to put our resources. And again, I'll emphasize the impact of risk and uncertainty that really has to be explicitly considered if you want to optimize portfolio and project value. And by understanding the risks and uncertainty, you can balance risky projects against more easy-to-do projects, but overall optimize the capability of producing the highest value from your portfolio. So Ian, with that, I'd like to turn it back to you, and let's go from here.
Okay, thanks, Don and Tony. That was very informative. I hope the audience found value in that. Looking at some concepts there and actually walking through a scenario to put all of that into context. What I'd like to wrap up with is some observations in the market and some of the things that we're looking to do from SAP and through our partner ecosystem. And that is to kind of build and continue to build this PPM community. I think there's been a strong community around project concepts for a number of years. I think as people have been maturing some of their project postures, they're getting more advanced in their portfolio management postures as well. And I think that the market is really ready and available to start doing more community and help each other move up that maturity curve. I actually spent the first few days of this week at a Gartner conference, and that concept really came to play in some of the workshops held there. The other change in the market that we're really seeing is this concept of enterprise level PPM, along with the advanced techniques and concepts that Don and Tony have just introduced. So it's no longer a very siloed approach to managing projects, managing ideation. It really is collaborative across multiple departments and multiple types of projects, whether they're pure new product development introduction, whether it's IT, whether it's revenue generating projects, they all roll up to that enterprise portfolio. So with that in mind, one of the things we're doing here at SAP is continuing to expand our portfolio of benchmark surveys, and we've just launched a new one for capital portfolio and project management. There's an existing one for MPDI, and we very much encourage customers or people that are looking at SAP anew to contribute to building up that knowledge base, so that as a community we can start comparing KPIs, best practices, etc., as we all carry on through this maturing process. The other thing that really comes out of this in building that community is there's a number of opportunities for us to get together and exchange ideas. We're running a monthly webinar series with partners such as SmartOrg and Platinum DB. SAP is driving customer value network events in Newtown Square on June 5th and 6th. And we've got a dedicated project and portfolio management conference slated for the fall. Probably going to be in Dallas in the October timeframe. We're still working on some logistics there, but we'll get that message out to you as soon as those things are locked down. The other thing I'd like to very much encourage existing SAP customers and to-be SAP customers as well is to reach out to ASOG. We've got a very active PPM Influence Council, and there's organizations and people that have their PPM posture at various different levels of maturity. And again, the faster all of us can move up that maturity curve, the more value we can be delivering back to our organizations. So really that's the end of the content for the webcast. I do want to kind of say a couple of things in summary with respect to, not just advanced PPM and the tools there, but again this concept of enterprise PPM. I really do believe that that's where the market is trending. If you look at thought leaders like Gartner, a few years ago they were just covering IT PPM. They've really changed a lot of their research and their coverage to look at these multiple business scenarios, whether they're innovation, product or service delivery, major capital and asset project portfolio elements that make up that portfolio. And a number of customers are looking and asking for some of these optimization techniques to really drive value through their portfolio. And I'd encourage people to take a deeper dive and look at the PPM optimization workbench provided by SmartOrg and PlatinumDB on top of the overall PPM framework. In terms of SAP applications that make up the whole ecosystem, it's not just PPM. There's a number of backbone core ERP functions that drive up into the portfolio. And I'd certainly be happy to describe a lot more of that architecture and the integration points at a future webinar. And just to kind of wrap up, that I think that the one thing that comes up most of all, if I could pick one word that comes up most of all in the context of project and portfolio management, is this concept of visibility. In most organizations, the data is there somewhere, but it's locked in spreadsheets, emails, offline documents. Really, to get that visibility, you've got to have an enterprise class solution that enables people of different disciplines, different levels of maturity to drill down into that information so they get full visibility to that project life cycle through easy to consume reports, analytics, etc. So I will get off my soapbox now and we'll open this up for questions. I think we've got a few that have come through on the chat box, and I'll start reading through them, and certainly feel free to add some more questions as they come in. We've probably got about 5 or 7 minutes here, so I'll rattle off these and we'll cover as many as we can. I'll throw this one to you, Tony. Certainly in the architecture diagram that I showed up front, and you alluded to it a couple of times, do you want to just add some flavor to what's meant by that fully integrated system? And does that mean that that's all within SAP, or are there other components engaged in the overall integrated system?
Yeah, the overall integrated system is basically it's a internet-based, meaning it's a Microsoft Explorer-based system. It can be in a lot of our client environments, it's we refer to it as kind of like PPM in a box. It's a self-contained environment with a single point of access where you log on through a portal, and the PPM workbench is accessed seamlessly through one logon, and where the reporting is also looked at the same way, where you can use, if you're a customer that's using let's say the Business Object Suite, you can use the Business Object Suite to basically use both sources of the data, meaning the portfolio navigator data as well as the portfolio data from PPM in one seamless set of reports.
great. Thanks a lot, Tony. Next question from Sarah is, you mentioned, Don, I'll give this one to you, the kind of process that you showed, was that just an example, or is this something that's kind of locked into the system and it's more rigid? Can you talk a little bit about how flexible the process is?
Yeah, that's a good question. Totally flexible. We have used the system to support M&A. We've used system recently for 2 large Silicon Valley companies in developing their overall strategies. The little value map or that analytic I showed is totally configurable, and what many companies do is develop a library of 2 to, it only takes 3 to 4 of these master analytic templates, if you want, to handle most portfolios, unless you have a really exotic business, but they're totally configurable based on each client. Does that answer the question?
Okay. Yeah, I think so. Just got another question here. Can't quite see who it's from though, but the question is, what algorithm did you use for portfolio selection? I think that's asked by Vladimir.
Okay, try to answer that very quickly. We come out of a long history from MIT, from Stanford University, in engineering economic systems. The algorithms used are based on decision analysis, which is using decision tree analysis to probably that's the most robust approach. Some people will use the term Monte Carlo. Yes, this is equivalent to Monte Carlo, but a little bit more in-depth or a little more robust. Our people here are experts. We teach actually this kind of stuff at Stanford, and have written one of the major textbooks called Decision Analysis for the Professional. So all the algorithms under this are derived from decision analysis.
Great, thanks. And next question, this is clearly for Tony. Marvin asks, who is Platinum DB?
Great.
You sure you didn't ask that question yourself, Tony?
Yeah, I'm absolutely positive I didn't ask it, but it's a great question. So Platinum DB is a SAP partner. We're also we're an SAP partner, services partner, and development partner. We've been around for approximately 12 years. I personally am a ex-SAP consultant and have worked in the marketplace for 17 years. But our organization basically works in the SAP space primarily, and serves as a consulting as well as a development partner, and offer hosted solutions just like you're seeing here today. So everything you've seen here today can be hosted.
Excellent. Thanks, Tony. Just time for one more question. Don, this one's for you. Can you just expand a little bit on the use of strategy tables, where that fits in the process and how they work?
Yeah, we think it's fundamental. At the very beginning, we wrote a book a number of years ago called The Smart Organization, which explains these strategy tables in detail. We've recently also done a white paper with Frost and Sullivan based on the use of these at places like Hewlett-Packard in developing entirely new businesses. The strategy table, by the way, if anyone would like to have a more of an in-depth explanation, there's a chapter in our book, The Smart Organization, and if you pop an email to me, my email's on the screen, I can send a PDF of that chapter to anyone who would like to have it. It takes a little bit more time to explain than we have here on the phone. And if you want to talk about it in detail, send me an email and give me your phone number, and I'll be happy to chat with you about it, because it is a very powerful tool.
Thanks very much, Don. We're coming right up on the top of the hour, so I'd like to thank Tony and Don for some very useful and interesting content, and thanks to everybody who attended today. I do know that there were possibly some audio issues during the webcast. We'll take a soundbite all the way through and just see if we need to do a re-record on that. So if we find that it's missing content, then we'll record it offline and make that available to you shortly. Thanks again for your attendance, and have a great day.
Thank you, Ian. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Ian.